Deals are dying every single day, and worse, investors are overpaying on the ones that they do get, not because they're bad at comps, not because they don't know their numbers, but because they're guessing. They don't actually know the true condition of the property. So what happens then? They play it safe and they lose the deal, or they get really aggressive and overpay by 10 or 20 or even $30,000 just to find out later that the house needs way more work than they originally thought. And it all comes back to just one thing: photos and the condition of the house, or the lack of those pictures, right? Because the right let me restart that. Because right after that initial conversation, it's when to get eyes on the property. Everything can break down from there. The seller says they'll send the photos, but then they don't. Or they send blurry, useless, pictures of half of the room, right? And so much of the house is actually missing, and you don't know what you're buying. And now you're stuck making a six-figure decision with incomplete information, especially if you're virtual. That's where deals either get made or lost or quietly fall apart. But imagine this. What if before you ever made an offer, you actually knew what shape the house was in? Not guessing, not assumptions, but real visibility. How much more confident would you be on those offers? And how many bad deals would you avoid? How many good deals would you lock up even faster? Today's guest built something that solves one of the most frustrating and expensive bottlenecks in this business: getting clean, usable property photos directly from the seller without friction, without chasing, and without slowing your pipeline down. He's a creator of Seller Submit. And once you see this, you'll realize how many deals you've been underwriting absolutely blind. Everybody, welcome to the Closers Club, where real investors come to learn the tips and tricks that the pros are using to run high volume, highly successful, and profitable investment companies. Tactics that you can take and implement into your business today. Stephen, let's get right into it. Let's talk about this. Why is the photo step such a massive choke point in wholesaling? And how is it directly causing wholesalers and investors to either lose deals or overpay on the ones that they do get?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, David.
Yeah.
It's a part of every wholesale deal. You have to get photos, whether you go yourself or send a boots on the ground or hire a third-party company, or what a lot of folks do, especially if they're multi-state or nationwide, is they have the seller send them photos. Now, that often looks like folks trying to get them to use a Google Drive link, which is crazy, or more commonly, they just have the seller text them the photos. Now, if you've done that more than a few times, you can understand the frustrating and the choke point that occurs there, where the sellers may text you photos, but it might be 5 photos and one of them might be their dog. And you're like, well, I see your roof and your hot water tank. Or the photos are blurry, or they're just not a complete set. So it's very difficult, if not outright impossible, to properly underwrite a deal, like you mentioned, and make an informed offer if you don't have not only good quality, non-blurry photos, but a complete photo set of the interior, the mechanicals, the exterior, and anything additional to see. And that's always been a bottleneck for folks. And you have to have that as a wholesaler, as an investor, to be able to make an informed decision in an offer.
So photos are absolutely just non-negotiable, right? We understand that we have to have them. If you can get videos, that's even better. But, tell me first, how did you even come up with this? Like, what made you want to do this? Are you an app guy? Like where did all this come from?
Sure, absolutely. Long story short, I've been in real estate about 9 years and started wholesaling and agent, fix and flips and rentals. And I'm still wholesaling and growing that part of my business over the last few years. And, as we're expanding, I'm in the Cleveland, Ohio area, but our business is expanding. And as we got leads farther and farther away, getting the photos was often, asking ourselves, how do we get it? What's the most efficient way to do it? So if a lead is an hour, 2, 3, sometimes longer away, or in a different state even, you're relying on either boots on the ground, a contractor, a handyman, a third-party service that goes out and does that. And both of those can get very expensive, especially as you scale. Or it was have the seller send us photos. And again, like I just mentioned, a lot of these sellers who choose to sell off market, a lot of them skew older. They're not too technically advanced. So getting those photos was always tricky. So I just started building, I've always had a kind of a knack for coding, things like that. When I was in college, I did some of that. So I'm always tinkering with stuff in my own business. And this was one of the things I thought, it'd be very cool if we could just create something
Hmm.
like this. And I started with,
Yeah.
with my own wholesaling business of sending this out to folks. And then
Mhm.
it worked, and sellers completed it. And I said, oh, this is kind of cool. So I shared it with some Facebook communities of wholesaling that I'm a part of. And it got a great response. And other
Mm.
investors were like, hey, I'm interested. How can I use it? And you had mentioned earlier, David, especially nationwide. This
Mhm.
is so valuable. Some of the clients we have are nationwide wholesalers. And just being able to have that initial conversation with the seller and saying, okay, I think there's potentially a deal here. Let's move
Mhm.
on to the photos, and being able to just literally text them a link and say,
Yeah.
here, you complete the photos. Um, you can do it in your pajamas. I like to tell the sellers. One of the biggest objections that I've heard over the years, especially for properties that the sellers saying, I don't want to disturb my tenants. I don't want to spook them and have somebody that nobody
Mhm.
knows come through and take photos. And that's a common objection. So this cuts right through it and says, I don't have to come into your property. You can do it, Mr. Seller, when your tenant's not home or they know you, what have you. So that cuts through that objection that I've heard so many times over the years. So basically, to answer your question, just started out as a necessity of my business. With the AI tools and everything, it really helped me piece it all together and make it very user friendly. And it's just
Mhm.
snowballing. It was out of necessity, out of utility, that this was kind of born, and it's kind of morphed into a real
Mhm.
product.
Nice. I love it. It's funny. You literally cold emailed me, I think, or text messages
Yeah.
me, and not Stephen, not 3 days before I was on one of my calls, and I'm like, I don't understand why somebody hasn't just created an app for this, because I know it's built into like Open Door and all those, like their whole platform. Because my partner sold her house to Open Door, and she's like, it was the easiest thing ever. I just went through and click, 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 took all the pictures, and I was done. And we are in an online shopping world, so I think people are just getting a little bit more used to this. So how does it work? If you're the seller, you get the link, and like what is it? How does it walk them through?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a client, you have this, first and foremost, it's branded to your company. So the URL that you send has the app address in front, and then your company's name's actually in the URL, and your
Mm.
logo is uploaded. So when the seller opens that link, they see your company logo. But yeah, so
Mhm.
you would just text them or email them, but texting works since it's done on the phone. Text them a
Right.
link, they open it, no app to download, no storage on the phone, nothing like
Oh,
that.
love it.
They just opens the browser. They fill out some contact information. They also fill out the bedroom and bathroom count of the property,
Mm.
and the
Interesting.
tool will dynamically alter and change. If it's a 3 bed, 1.5 bath, it's going to ask for at least three. It's going to know 3 bedrooms are needed to be photographed and 2 bathrooms, one for the full and one
Mhm.
for the half.
Mhm.
It also supports multifamily properties. So if they choose it's a multifamily, they can add the bedroom and bathroom in each unit, and they can tell and they indicate whether the mechanicals are in a shared space like a basement, or if they're in the units themselves. And the tool
Mhm.
will adapt automatically with the flow to account for that.
Wow.
The sellers just hit continue, and it's very user friendly, and it just walks them through room by room
It's
to
like
take.
turning in my U-Haul. I have to do the same thing when I rented a U-Haul. It's
Somebody just said
fantastic.
that to me last week, and they compared it to that.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that. It's very simple. So, for instance, they go into the kitchen, and you, as the client, you can set the minimum required photos that you want to see. So you could say, hey,
Mhm.
for every client, I want to see at least 3 kitchen photos. So you set that on the back end as a client, and the client, the seller takes a photo of the kitchen. And a really cool part is, in real time, AI validates that photo to see if that's actually a kitchen that they're taking a photo of, and to
Mm.
make sure it's not blurry. So in real
Mhm.
time, it'll process. And if it's not the kitchen, for whatever reason, they take a picture of the outside, it'll say, hey, this doesn't look like the kitchen. Please re upload a photo. So that's a
Mhm.
pretty cool part of it. And I made this, David, with first and foremost ease of use for the seller, because again, some of these folks aren't technically savvy. We don't want any seller getting frustrated, not understanding how it works, getting stuck on any step. So they have the ability to skip photos, but you, as the client, can see all the photos they've uploaded and all the ones that they chose not to for whatever reason. They
Mhm.
walks them through step by step. Also allows them to add any additional photos, just random photos of a shed or a pool or a
Right,
roof
right.
leak or anything like that. And then they submit that. Now, when they start, the sellers get an email link that says, hey, we've gotten your information. Within that link or within that email, there's a link. So if that seller's going through and let's say their phone dies or they get a call or they just have to stop in the middle, they can do that. And they can reference that email, open up the link, and it will bring them right back to where they stopped.
Pretty cool.
Start over. So once they submit those photos, it will land in you're the client's personal password protected dashboard, where you can see every person who started that, whether they're in progress or whether they've completed the submission. And you click that and you can scroll through the photos very quickly. You can request right from the dashboard to say, hey, I see you gave me this photo of the kitchen, but can you send me another photo? Or the countertop got cut off, or, I can't quite see the whole bathroom. And that will send the seller an email with a new link. And that link will open right up to whatever feature or room that you requested to take again. So again, they don't have to start from the beginning. It's very easy. Also, within that dashboard, you can download those files locally, or you can share them via email, multiple emails, as many as you liked, to buyers, contractors, real estate agents. And what they'll get is the address and the photos, and no contact information from those sellers if you want to keep that confidential for the time being. So very easy on the client side to request more, view the photos, and then also share those with your team or anybody outside your organization.
Fantastic. Now, Stephen, in your business, were you utilizing this mainly after you got the contracts, before you got the contracts, and were these photos good enough to use for your marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the process was, we get leads in, and it just this fell into when we would usually send our guy out or go ourselves, saying, okay, we agree preliminarily on these terms and this price. Now it's time for the photos. We can text you a link right now and you can complete it. And that's kind of where it fits in our process. So we use those to underwrite the deal, to make our offer. And then we also use that in our marketing to send to buyers. Now, a lot of times we'll still set up another walkthrough, for serious buyers to come and set eyes on it. So it fits right into that. Let's get initial photos to actually be able to underwrite the deal. And absolutely, we use these in our marketing as well.
Oh, I love that. And how has this helped your offers? Are you finding that you're having more completed contracts? More of them are actually closing because you feel like your numbers are getting better?
Yeah, the numbers not only get better because the app, the tool, requests photos of everything we need to see as a wholesaler and as an investor. The interior, the mechanicals, the exterior. We ask them to photograph the roof, the driveway, the garage, all of these things that we really care about. So it's helped us too, just speed. So when we get everybody talks to lead in terms of when a new lead comes in, which of course is super important. But once you have that conversation and you introduce them and you're talking to the seller, if you can tell them, hey, don't have to send anybody out to the house. We don't have to disturb you or your tenants. Take this link. You can do it now. You can do it tonight. You can do it whenever it's convenient for you. And as soon as they complete that lands in our dashboard instantly. So we can jump right on, underwrite that deal, say, hey, we have a pretty good idea of what this property's condition is. Let's tighten up our numbers and send out that final contract. And that always helps because with anything, you don't want to get to that point. You never know what other company or individuals this seller is talking to. So if you can get them out a legit contract after you've already underwritten it within literally a matter of minutes or hours, if they use it quickly enough, has just been a huge benefit for us.
That's fantastic. What's the worst pushback you've gotten from a seller? Anything?
No, just, this, I keep iterating this and keep getting feedback. When we were first rolling it out, it was, how do I do this? I can't, get to the next step. I'm always taking feedback. We're always improving just little things.
Nice.
Some folks will just say, if they're elderly or if they started, we get a lot of snow up here and we recently did this winter. So they're like, I can't walk to the backyard of my house to photograph the back of it. And it's just making sure that that's okay. Submit what you have, which that kind of language is built in with it. I want users to not get frustrated. That is the number one thing. I want them we're asking them to take a little bit of time to do this. So the only pushback that's kind of been it, but we're constantly working to improve that. And within that same vein, David, we've found that it's an kind of underlying benefit of this is it helps you measure the seriousness of these sellers. Because if you send them this link and they take the time to go through this and take the photos and upload it
Hmm.
and send it to you and submit it, you know, hey, they're probably pretty serious if they're going to do this. And we've sent this
Right.
link out to folks who say, oh yeah, send it to me. They never do it. And we try to our usual follow up, and they just might be tire kickers or not as serious. So that's kind of an
Gotcha.
inherent benefit that we found on our end. Like, okay, somebody took the time to do this. Let's jump on them
Mhm.
because they probably are looking really for an offer.
Love it. Now, me as the client, when how do I sign up? Like, is there, and I'm sure we'll put the website up here, but it's
Yeah,
pretty easy. I can just go get this set up, get it set up pretty quickly.
absolutely. So sellersubmit.com. There's a button at the top, get started. It asks you
Hmm.
your information, your business name, and if you want to use a logo, you can upload it right there. You click next. Payment screen. Once that goes, then you're signed up, and you get an email with your admin link and the link you
Hmm.
send to sellers. So it literally takes less than 5 minutes to get
I love
started.
that.
Yeah.
And, I know pricing can change, but is this like a monthly plan? Is this per seller that you send it to? Kind of how does that all work?
So definitely wanted people to be able to use this for any situation. So it's just a monthly subscription, and
Hmm.
it's unlimited photos. Send it to as many people as you want. No
Wow.
setup fee. Just a
Uh,
monthly subscription. Yeah.
I love it. That is
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. What question have I not asked you? What else do people need to know?
That's kind of it. It's very straightforward. It solves a very specific but super important, as we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation, part of the wholesaling business is,
Yeah.
you need to have accurate photos. The other cool thing that I built into here is like GPS verification. I had a client say, "How do I know that
Oh,
this house
ah,
wasn't some other person's house?" Well, it
yeah.
will tell you if those photos were taken at that property or not. So I'm
Hmm.
really just feedback, trying to hear how this works. And I've been in the business 9 years. I've walked
Mhm.
countless properties. There's tens of thousands of photos on my phone, and my storage is begging
Yeah.
for mercy. So, you know, I I built this from personal experience in terms of
Love
what
that.
needs to photograph, the flow, and just
Mhm.
understanding sellers' friction.
Yeah.
Our whole business is lowering that friction. That's why sellers a lot of times will sell off market properties. Um,
Right.
they don't want the friction in a lot of things, and this tool, first and foremost, helps alleviate the friction of getting photos of the property.
I love it. Like I said, I think this is very needed in our industry. I think there are definitely times when you need to send somebody out there to get the ultra professional pictures or to get someone to sign a notary or to put a
Yeah,
lockbox on. But I think this can be used in so many situations. And I remember way back in the day, I'm posting on Craigslist and in Facebook groups trying to pay someone $150 to go out there and do these showings. So Stephen, I think this is absolutely amazing. Last question: Are the photos time stamped at all?
they are time stamped. Yep.
Awesome.
Exactly when they were taken. Then also, we encourage to take live photos, so it opens their camera, but they also have the
Mhm.
option to upload photos from their library in
Mm,
case they
okay.
can't get there or something like that. So, yeah, you can see when the photos were taken and uploaded.
Awesome. Man, Stephen, this is fantastic. I'm so excited to bring this to all of our clients and partners. This is absolutely amazing. Guys, this is the reality. Most investors, they're not losing deals because they don't know what they're doing. They're losing the deals because they're making decisions without literally the full picture. And worse, they're overpaying on the ones that they do get because they're underwriting blind. So Stephen didn't just build an app, he solved one of the most expensive blind spots in this business and something that I really struggled with when I started going virtual. So, if you want to stop guessing and move faster and actually know what you're buying before you make the offer, go check it out right now. We'll put the link right here and in the description. Go use it. Let's blow this app up because this is what we have been waiting for. So, if you got value from this, please subscribe, drop a like, and send this to somebody who's still out there guessing on rehab costs.